I'm thinking for the first one, why don't we go for the Three Rivers Firefighter of the Year, Carlos Vasquez. Thank you, Carlos. And thank you, our new fire chief, Charlie Norman. Thank you for coming. And you're going to tell us something about Carlos, right?
You betcha.
All right, let me get out of the way.
And with the back house, I'll be brief because I know Carlos has a lot to say, right?
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you very much for hosting this event. We appreciate it, and thank you for taking time out of your busy weeks. It's because if you're like most people, Friday rolls around, you're thinking, I'd like to introduce our Firefighter of the Year, Carlos Vasquez. He's been a resident of Three Rivers for 9 years, and nobody told me that my name tag fell off. Thanks a lot. Hate when that happens. All right, here we go. He's been a firefighter for Tulare County for the past 2 years, and during this time he's provided a wealth of practical and educational knowledge. His accomplishments, both in his level of participation and the amount of education he's required, is remarkable. He's a member of the Three Rivers Company at Station 14 as one of the most active and enthusiastic members. He's participated in several out-of-county fire assignments in the summer of 2015. He's been to the historical Rough Fire, the Valley Fire, and as well as the Anza Fire. So very active for a extra help volunteer firefighter that has a full-time life, family, and job. He does so much for our organization. He's also an occasional boat, fire, and mountain rescue, and he's willing to help in any way needed. He's hoping to make the fire service a full-time career. He's completed Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, EMT, and he's currently enrolled, getting ready to start the Wildland Fire Academy. He's taken the Operator 1A, 1B, so he's approved to drive fire apparatus, which brings on a whole different level of responsibility, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
And you'll be up for it, I know you will.
Sure.
He's described by his supervisors, Captain Parrish, Hubbard, and Tyson Lewis, as knowledgeable, willing to do anything asked of him, and generally a pleasure to supervise. We wish to acknowledge his wife, and I'll let him introduce his family for him. His employer, Jewel Construction of Three Rivers, is supportive of his community service, and he has done so much away from his job. It's always great to have employers that allow us to do things like this. I want to thank you for your dedication and just your service to the community. I'll let you introduce your family. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, Chief. Well, first of all, I just want to thank every single one of you guys for being here and with me and my family and my other big family. I thank my supervisor, Captain Ron, Lieutenant Hubbard, Lieutenant Tyson, for everything they taught me, and I want to thank my family too for allowing me to do this, and the number one thing is thank the fire service for the opportunity that they gave me, and I did bring my family with me. I got my my beautiful wife, my beautiful daughter.
Can you come up front?
Somebody's gonna have to video for her.
I will.
I knew she was all dressed up for some reason.
Yeah, so I got my beautiful daughter and my beautiful wife that God gave me, and got my parents in the back, older brother, younger sister, got my nephew. So I just want to say thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to ask one question. What's it like when you hear he's gone off to help try to put out a fire? Does it make you nervous, or what does it feel like?
It makes me nervous and I get scared. So yeah, so we just pray.
That's it. That's it. Thank you so much for sharing him.
Yeah.
You know, he's trying to do this in addition to a regular job. That's really hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time away from family. So hope you get to enjoy each other and get to enjoy Three Rivers, you know, in between working, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Carlos,
Okay.
Yes, sir.
how long were you away for the Rough Fire?
At the Rough Fire, I was exactly gone 12 days, and the Anza Fire, I was gone for 5 days, and then the Valley Fire, I was gone for 11 days.
So in terms of family, were you able to communicate with them, with your wife?
I was able to communicate, not as much as I wanted to, because of the cell phone reception most of the time. We're out
Welcome to Three Rivers.
we're out there in the mountains, and
Yeah.
but then again, I enjoy doing it, and I'll do it anytime I get a chance. Sir.
Can you tell us some things that you did to help stop those fires? What was your work?
At the rough fire, first time I went out, they had us protect houses. We had to clean all the brush and debris that people left on top of the roof, so their ceiling won't catch on fire, their roof won't catch on fire, and all the light fuels, we were raking them and getting them further away from the house, and then we were making a fire break around the houses, and we were always ready with water and the nozzle ready to, just in case fire showed up.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
So that was the main thing you did on which fire?
Rough fire,
Okay.
and then the valley fire, I was cleaning up hot spots. We were making sure fire was out completely, and Anza fire, we were also cleaning hot spots.
What does cleaning hot spots mean?
Cleaning a hot spot is it's a term we use when something's done burning. We make sure it's when it's hot, there's smoke coming out of it. We make sure it's out completely. We just we try to put it out, miss. Yeah. But,
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. Does anybody have any stories they want to tell about Carlos?
Lieutenant Hubbard might have some.
Yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
he was with me. Oh, okay. I remember. I'll tell that story for him. Okay. We went out of county and he told me you have only one job and one job only. That is to take care of my coffee cup. Whatever you do not leave my coffee cup behind. And then when we arrived, when we arrived at our destination, we went down to eat, and after that we went to spend the night where we were gonna spend the night, and the first thing was I forgot the coffee cup. So I failed first mission. That was
His only job.
Have you had to use any of your rescue training yet here in Three Rivers or in the area?
Yes, miss. We've actually done a couple of rescues where people relied on me with tying knots and making sure the rope was secure and some of those stuffs. And
Good. Great. We're so happy to have you, Carlos.
I just want to say
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Does anybody else have any other stories to tell on Carlos or questions to ask? Well, he's on the hot seat.
Please.
Okay. If not, Carlos, you're lucky. Okay, we've got a couple of things to give you here. Let's see. Okay, first of all, the county supervisors. Every year, they love this program and they ask, okay, who's being honored this year? And then they make certificates. Well, okay. And this one says, Tulare County Board of Supervisors, presented to Carlos Vasquez, Tulare County Fire Department, Three Rivers Firefighter of the Year, signed by Alan Nishida.
Thank
Can you
you.
see that? Very nice. Then the chamber makes a certificate, and then my husband and I have a little bed and breakfast, and so we always give you a certificate. And we know if you live in the area, it seems kind of odd maybe to have a gift certificate to stay at a B&B, but we think, what if you have your family come over? It's a big event, and you don't have enough room for everybody. You can send a couple of them over to us, okay?
Perfect.
On the house, because you have a
Thanks.
certificate.
Thank you.
All right? All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, miss.
Very much.
Thank you. Very good.
Okay? Last but not least, every year, different artists in Three Rivers work really hard to try to depict the Heroes logo. And Casey Fansett had elaborated on it you made the original one, but then Casey, our watercolor artist, she added the mountains in the back and really made it very nice. And they tried to come up with it in ceramics, in wood, in glass, on gourds, you name it. Metal. The first one was metal. This year we have 3 women working as seamstresses and doing it's fabric applique plus embroidery with a leather backing, and then they framed it. Talk about hard work. It just fit too. Trying to get all the lettering, which is embroidered up here, and the mountains, and the silhouettes, the Heroes logo. It's supposed to represent, that's a lady firefighter. I think that's supposed to be a city cop and a Marine by the helmet shape. Yeah, so we represent the armed forces and our first responders with that.
Thank you, miss. I
Great.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. And it was Shirley Fox, her daughter Patty Fox, and their friend Angie Peterson who did this.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. You can have a seat, Carlos. Okay, now we wanted to talk about this complicated and long fire, the rough fire, which was really, troubling us here in Three Rivers. We were concerned. I mean, we knew intellectually it was far away, but boy, was it scary. And it was huge, and it seemed to take forever.
I want to see you. Turn this way.
Let's go make a good video.
And talk.
It seemed to take forever to douse that fire or get it under some form of control. So I talked to Woody Smeck and I said, can you identify for me the different agencies involved? And he said there were 5, and he named the head of each at the time. So we had Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park, their fire, Tulare County Fire, again, CAL FIRE, Sequoia National Forest, and Sierra National Forest, all working together. So tonight, we'd like to have someone for each agency step up and tell us what their part in it was. Who would like to go first? Dave, or go ahead. Introduce yourself and tell us what department, which agency rather you worked for.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dean Gould. I'm the Forest Supervisor on the Sierra National Forest. I volunteered to go first because, after all, the rough fire started on the Sierra. So it only seemed appropriate for me to at least get the discussion started here and give some of the background on it, and then the other speakers, I'm sure, can fill in with some of the additional information. So I won't get into all the details, but I'm sure those will be covered as we go through here. So just a few things, just for starters. Started on July 31st, about mid-slope of the Kings Canyon drainage on the Sierra National Forest side of the river. That is one of the steepest unbroken vertical rises you're going to find in North America. So that's one challenge. The second challenge, of course, after years of drought, the vegetation was at a particularly stressed condition as well. And so the fire behavior was going to be very extreme, regardless of where on any of these forests a fire may have started. So the very, very, very steep terrain combined with the unnaturally high fire severity conditions resulted in a fire that was very, very difficult for us to capture initially. And so we set up some lines to catch it beyond that. And then the conditions just continued to demonstrate that this was not going to be like fires in the past. It continued to challenge all the resources that we were able to bring to bear on it. And do recall at this time there were a number of fires going on throughout the region and also going on in the Northwest as well. So there was a very high demand for resources really in the western United States. And so we definitely got into the partnership that was described, and that is really what made the difference. But I'll even expand it beyond the 5 that were mentioned, because there were so many players, and the folks here that are here tonight really just represent really the thousands that were ultimately involved with it. I just want to additionally mention the key role that law enforcement played. In addition, the public, all of you. And I'll just speak about the public for a moment. The public was, first of all, very, very engaged. That's critical. that they were actually very participative, very interested. They came to the public meetings, the forums we had, the social media. They were just very, very involved with that. Added a lot of value, and beyond just being engaged, they're incredibly supportive as well. We could not have asked for better support across the board with the communities that were involved in this incident. So that really made a huge difference. So again, I definitely want to acknowledge both the key role that law enforcement, the sheriff's office, etc., as well as the community played in responding to this. So ultimately, the rough, again, I won't go too much longer here, but just to put it into context, the Sierra National Forest historically has not been a forest with large fires. It just hasn't been. Within the past 3 years, however, we've had 3 of the largest fires that we've had on the forest in the past 100 years. The Rough Fire, our portion of it, which was about 58,000 acres, that is the largest fire that we've had in recorded history on the Sierra National Forest. Certainly other forests have had much larger fires than that. In fact, the Sequoia's portion of the Rough was larger than that, but they'll be talking about that here in a moment. But I just want to highlight that to show that the conditions that are out there right now are unprecedented, especially when you have 3 large fires in a row like that. That's not just chance. I mean, that's obviously condition driven, and so all the more reason why public involvement, public engagement, and as the awardee was just describing, helping homeowners be safe and preparing themselves as best they can. That is what really helps make the difference. So that is what I wanted to share. If there's any questions or follow-up, I'll be glad to answer. But again, I know there's several others that were going to speak on it.
Does anybody have any questions for Dean?
Okay.
Easy
Perfect.
crowd.
Yes, they're going to be easy on you tonight. All right, Dean. Okay. We've got a county certificate for you too. Dean Gould, Forest Supervisor, Sierra National Forest, for coordinating the multi-agency fight to control the Rough Fire, signed by Alan Nishida. And there's a chamber certificate and another one of those little bed and breakfast gift certificates if you should ever need it.
Well, as far as the certificate from the chamber goes, my role was I was the agency administrator's representative for really the north side of the fire. We split it into zones primarily, north of the Kings and south, and so I was the representative for the north side for the most part. Again, the partnership was fantastic. We couldn't work better together, and I'm frankly I'm a bit embarrassed to have my name on that certificate because it wasn't me. I mean, there were so many people involved, but I will gladly accept it, and I really appreciate
in the name of everyone who fought this thing.
Absolutely,
because it was a huge effort.
It was, and so I'll gladly take that back to the forest and be sure to share it with all of them.
Okay, and the same thing here. Well, we have to thank you. You represent the whole forest, okay? All right. Dean Gould, Forest Supervisor. Okay. All right, there we go.
It's incredible. Thank you
you.
very, very much.
Thank you for coming. All right. Okay, who wants to be next on the hot seat?
Oh, the park.
The park.
Okay.
Okay. Get it out of the way. Okay, and for this one we have, identify yourself.
My name is Carrie Vernon. I'm the superintendent for the helicopter here at Ash Mountain. So my first time on the Rough Fire this year was I saw her when she was a baby. And then I started mapping her August 5th. And through the course of the fire, did a number of things, including lighting more fire in an attempt to get it to stop going where it wasn't supposed to go. I was on a recon mapping with infrared, so we did a lot of different things with Helicopter 552. My crew was just one of thousands of people that worked on the Rough Fire, and I want to acknowledge the entire park. The fire kicked smoke into the Kings Canyon, and we have a lot of backcountry users. We have about 35,000 backcountry users a year, and many of them woke up to not even being able to see across the canyon. So our backcountry people escorted people out. They got information to all the hikers. Our poor people down at Cedar Grove sucked smoke for weeks and then evacuated everybody out when they were told it had to be done very quickly. Our law enforcement up at Grant Grove, everybody, the entire park was impacted. People had to leave their homes for weeks on end and come down to Ash Mountain, so they were relocated down to the park's south end. So the entire park's staff did an incredible job. And I know they were also hosting a lot of people from other agencies. So I was very proud of my park, both parks, because we are two. But they did a great job, and they sucked a lot of smoke, and they still went to work every day. And many of them got relocated down to what used to be the Holiday Inn is now called the Wyndham? What is the new name for
Yes,
it?
it is.
So, and as a community, I was so proud of them. As a community, they decided to displace the children as little as possible. They all shared the same floor. So all the Grant Grove people went down. But if you can imagine leaving your home and not knowing if you're coming back to a pile of rubble. So they lived with that uncertainty. Whereas from my side of the house, I love my job. I fly all day. I'm not exactly having a sad time on the rough fire because I enjoy what I do. But it was scary. I saw fire behavior I have never seen. Well, I did see it on the Meadow Fire in Yosemite last year, or the year before, 2014. But it was incredible. That fire was hungry, and everybody kept telling me, it won't cross the Kings. 0.025% chance of cross the Kings. Yeah, fire never actually listens to what we tell it, so it did what it wanted to do. But if anybody has any questions, I did want to thank you guys for acknowledging the firefighters. But I just want to remind everybody that the fire that we experienced at Ash Mountain, everybody had a different experience of the rough fire, and everybody participated in their own way. We had stock. Our other employees, our four-legged employees, that were down at Cedar Grove sucking smoke. They had to get evacuated up and over Marvin Pass because they weren't allowed on the road. There was all kinds of stuff that was happening. It was incredible. And yet out in the backcountry, people were sharing information. It was amazing to see people come together and really work together on this.
That's awesome.
Was there anything different about the way the community or the agencies handled this fire that was different from other fires that you've had experience with?
I have been here and on my crew for 20 plus years. And I've always appreciated working with everybody. I've worked with the county, I've worked with the state, I've worked with Sierra Forest, and I think we're all used to it. The fire world, people just come together, and you don't know when you're going to run across each other. I was on the fire where we had our injured firefighter, so I was the spotter when we went out to help. But I knew that if the position was reversed, somebody would have come to help us. And I thought we did a really great job. I've known some of the people in the room for a long time. We're used to working together. So I thought it was
did a
really
great
sweet.
job too.
Well, and Dave Allen deserves some.
Yes.
Every single one of our firefighters in the fire management office, our hotshot crew did three 2-week tours on the rough fire. Our engines did multiple tours on the rough fire. I think they're slightly less excited about it. Everything's better when you get to fly there instead of drive there. So, yeah, they did a lot of time on the rough fire. Oh, great, we get another call to the rough fire. Another rough fire. But they did a lot of time. They did time on your dirt. They also did time on Shelby's dirt. So they were, the park, though, I mean, if you look at the acreage, the park and the terrain that it was burning into, we got to have a different fire because where it was coming in on the parkland, we weren't as concerned. We were mostly concerned about health impacts on our people. And it was incredible. We had to evacuate trail crews because they couldn't see their camp. So they had to all go out the east side. So we flew crew gear up and over the mountains. It was an interesting fire.
Right.
Anybody have any questions?
So you are involved with helicopters, but there are a lot of other aircraft and air support. I'm just wondering how all that gets coordinated together and what
Well,
that's
I'm
like.
spoiled. I was left at my own helibase because I had the option to like go hang out with a whole bunch of other helicopters or hang out at my own helibase. So I chose to stay at my own helibase. But at one time we had, well, Aubrey had 14 aircraft, I think is how big it got. And then there was the team that came in, Squaw Valley area, they leased land from a local landowner, and ended up with 5 helicopters, I think, Shelby, down there? And then we use McKenzie Ridge Helispot. So how it comes together is how anytime when we bring in crews, everybody comes in and gets briefed. Helicopters are a little bit different in that we don't necessarily go to ICP to check in. What the big story of the rough fire, though, was the VLAT, the very large air tanker. When the fire was threatening and was going to cross McKenzie Ridge, which would have been devastating. You want to see an air show that day? How many drops did there end up being? Shelby, do you remember?
Quite a few.
So the VLAT is the very large air tanker. Okay, it's a DC-10. It doesn't even look like it's moving. But they can drop, I think, 1.5 miles worth of retardant. And they hammered. Any of you guys that were out there get to see the VLAT show? Any of the engines? Yeah. Yeah, you could just watch taxpayer dollars. Whew. It was expensive and impressive, but you know what? It's what kept McKenzie Ridge. It's what held McKenzie Ridge. So that was the air show. And they're being coordinated by fixed wing in the sky, air attack. So you have an air attack supervisor who's supervising the fixed wing, and then you also have people that are supervising the helicopters. Everybody's being supervised. Trust me, I'm always supervised. Usually at least 2 or 3 times, although some people would argue that I'm unsupervisable. Some people may be in this room right now. So, but everybody just comes together and takes their job. The aerial ignition show, we kind of did a little bit of it. There was very little aerial ignition on the fire because fire didn't need any help. It was happy to chew up ground without us lighting anything off.
Yeah, wow.
It's a fun job, and part of you feels guilty because you're all excited to go to work when you realize what was being threatened. And I did see that fire. I was sneaking underneath the smoke on an IR flight. I did see that fire coming in behind the Kings Canyon Lodge. It was pretty much a given that we weren't going to keep it.
Yeah, yeah.
It was really sad.
Before the fire, I had just been out there and I was looking at it and thinking, oh my goodness, if there's a fire out here, this is a trap. Just looking at it.
Well,
It's where it was situated. And then when I heard the fire had started, it was like, okay, I think that's one little building that's not going to survive. That was just my opinion, but
we were so lucky, though. We have to remind ourselves, we were so lucky with the rough fire. The terrain, the isolated canyons, how things can be cut off with fire. And there was a horrific injury, but there was one.
and nobody died.
No one died.
That's right.
So, and I think when you consider how many boots were on the ground and the terrain, I have fought fire in every state in the West. And if you want a piece of steep dirt, go to Kings Canyon. Dean was right. When we started, like, well, that's just going to roll all the way down to the river. It's really steep. So I was glad for our safety record. I think that's the success of the rough fire. No one was injured. One was injured.
One injury, yeah, nobody
Well,
died.
there was others, but when you're talking about ones that have potential to change your life, one major life-changing event.
How is that person doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, he recovered well.
He did.
Yeah, he's ready to come back again.
If he wants to come back to fire, then, but yeah, that was a bad one.
We were told that the fire started on July 31st. When was it declared out?
Declared out. Well, did anybody,
Middle of November, early December.
somebody, and who did you guys throw, did you toss a coin to determine who was going to make that really ballsy maneuver and declare the fire out?
I think that was also for the Sierra National.
I think a lot of that was like,
I know, not me.
They started it, they got to declare it out.
Oh,
But
okay.
we're fortunate to have a fairly wet pattern.
That's the way it
So
gets.
it's around Thanksgiving.
After a rain, then.
Yeah,
after it rained.
Yeah, after it
A
rained
lot.
and snowed.
and snow. Yeah, because my helicopter was assigned to the fire for 2.5 months.
Wow. Long
Like I
time.
said, we didn't even have to really whine. They just left us down at Ash Mountain because we're a bunch of parkies, so they just left us over there, right, Shelby?
Second largest, I'm the fire management officer for the park. My name is David Allen. This was the second largest
fire in Sierra Nevada history, the largest being the Rim Fire that was in 2013. But one thing that was unique about this fire, it was burning in the same drought as the Rim Fire. So it was 2 years later than the Rim Fire. And so it's burning under more profound drought conditions. And it started a month earlier in the season than the Rim Fire. The Rim Fire didn't start till the end of August. The Rough Fire started at the end of July. So the duration of this fire was astonishing. I think it humbled a lot of people. Just the amount, the kind of depth and breadth of effort that needed to go in to controlling the fire over a long duration of time. It was.
Dave, would you mind coming up front and joining her here?
I think you get to get the certificate.
Oh,
Stay
nice.
put. He's receiving it for the agency, right?
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right, that's
Taking
right.
one for the team.
That's
He
right.
tried to get out of it and send me.
And
Well,
what we-
I get to say one
Yes,
thing
say
that I think Dean set the tone for the fire all along. That it was one fire, one team, one plan, and it was burning on 5 different administrative units, and it really had everyone from all around California as far as municipal departments, different forests, different parks. It was quite astonishing how many people came together and literally synced off the same sheet of music. And this is no small thing to do when everybody's wearing different uniforms and works for different people in their daytime job, have to switch mode and works for one incident commander. And all the leadership on the different forces really emphasized that, and that's one thing that, one of the primary reasons the injury rate was lower, and we did ultimately end up extinguishing the fire, and it was successful, is because it was a team effort and it was one team.
Awesome. Anybody have any questions for Dave now that he's finally come up to the front? He was avoiding it. He was letting you have it all. Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
You've got a question?
Well, I'm kind of concerned about the future, and I'm looking up at, I live across from Case Mountain, the west-facing part of it.
Oh.
And I've been there for many years, and for the first time ever, I'm seeing orange trees. At least half of them, maybe 2/3 of them, from about 5,500 all the way to the top. What does that mean? What is that, that's different than, and this is winter now, the rains have started, those trees are not turning green.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's happening all throughout the Sierra, so what are the implications of our
Well,
current
some of the
conditions?
effects from the drought, as far as like when water restrictions are gonna be done, when is water rationing gonna be done, we can fix that by having a very wet winter or very wet winters in a row. So sooner or later, we'll be out of water rationing. But one of the legacies of this profound drought, which talking to scientists could be anywhere from 200 to a 1,000-year record drought. It's either it hasn't been this dry in 200 years, or it's never been this dry, or it's been 1,000 years. It's hard to say. It's pretty darn dry. When on April 1st, it was 5% of normal snowpack. It's pretty astonishing. And the effects is, there's probably multiple reasons all those trees dying. Drought's just one of them. There might be a signal from climate change, and there might be signal for some overstocking of the forest. So the trees have an air pollution. There's a lot of stressors on the trees besides just drought. And when the drought hit, that was more or less a tipping point where just one more camel on the straw's back. One more straw on the camel's back, got that backwards, and it was too much for him. So what you're seeing right now, is particularly over the last 6 months, is a lot of die-off on the trees. And I can't really answer that question because we don't know the scope of it when it's going to end. It's looking like a slow motion disaster. It's the effect after the fire. So we don't know. It's really intense in the 4,000 to 6,000 foot pine range, and some places up on Highway 180 it's nearly 100%. And plans are being developed to harvest some of the trees. When I say harvest them, not necessarily for commercial reasons, but just to get the dead trees out of there, remove the trees. So there's some plans being developed, but the scope of it is so big that there isn't going to be one response that's going to work. And it's happening so fast, there isn't one plan to deal with it. And it should be of concern. So what you can do as a homeowner, because that's off in the forest, is really, even if the drought breaks, it's still really important. We live in a fire-prone ecosystem. California has a drought every year. It's called summer. You need to have fire protection. That's not going away. And those dead trees are not going away. And the solution for it is being worked on. It's going to be tough.
You look up toward Milk Ranch, I think that's what you
Yeah.
can watch, just kind of march its way down the hill.
Some of those areas are in wilderness. They're designated wilderness where, logging, tree removal is prohibited. So it's going to take a variety of different strategies to deal with them.
Okay. Can volunteers help at all? Can people help remove do mechanical removal?
You contact Mike Thune, our fire information.
There,
Yeah.
Mike. Come on up, Mike.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be here. I'm back taking pictures, but let's come up real quick.
Whatever. Get up here.
So, for those who don't know me, my name's Mike Thune. I'm the Fire Information Officer for Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park, and I get the pleasure of working with both of these every day. It's really, really awesome, and then all the rest of you as well. Volunteers can help in a myriad of different ways. It really depends on what their interest is as well as their availability. If you are interested, come talk with me afterwards. I can give you my information as well as the contact information for a volunteer coordinator.
Thank you.
You can't volunteer to fly in the helicopter, though.
I'm sorry, but that's.
It's her helicopter.
No,
She
it's
won't let you on it.
unfortunate, but because of the hazardous nature of the duties, we can't have you volunteer to fly in the helicopter.
But
That's why we can talk afterwards.
But start by doing your defensible space around your house.
Yes.
What the gentleman who's the firefighter of the year, he's talking about, he was doing defensible space while the fire is going on. Firefighters would prefer not to have to do that sort of work while the fire is going on.
Right. Have it done ahead of time.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, while you both are up here, here's the certificate from the county to the park, naming you because you're a fire management officer.
Okay.
For your whole gang, all right?
Okay.
For coordinating the multi-agency fight to control the rough fire. Alan
Okay.
Shida. And a certificate from the chamber and another one of those bed and breakfast. You can decide who gets it. The bed and breakfast certificate.
He's hoping for Reimer's certificate.
Yeah. I have two nearly 4-year-olds, so maybe I can swap that for a gallon of Reimer's ice cream.
And here's the one that
That's beautiful.
the women made for the park.
Okay.
See, I love all the fabric. It's all,
Yeah.
That's really nice. thing.
nothing is simple. Everything's got a pattern on it.
Yeah.
See the snow, the water, even the silhouettes.
We'll share it with Carrie and the staff. Thank you.
Can I get a picture of Walter Review real quick?
Okay, sure.
Why don't we go with Tulare County next and their help with the rough fire. Where's our new chief?
Thanks again. I'll be brief. Everybody's covered this, and you guys are the wildland experts, although the guys that went on to the rough fire are too. From Tulare County standpoint, I went up 3 or 4 times as the agency rep, so I actually had to polish my boots a couple of times, but I did none of the work in comparison to Carlos and Tyson and Ron and Rob. I mean, those guys were out there working, boots on the ground. Over the duration of the fire, we had 60 personnel up there and 22 pieces of equipment. And everybody did a great job, and it is, you know, one team working together from our standpoint. And I keep looking at the overtime budget going, oh, good grief, when are these guys getting that? They're not thinking that at all. But we had one injury. We had a firefighter that came back with a knee injury, and he's recovering. He had surgery last week. You know, unfortunately, going through the workman's comp process takes a while, but he's recovering well and should be back on the line probably in March.
Oh, good.
But from a team standpoint, with that big of a fire for that long of a duration, many different tours and rotations, you know, with that many personnel from You know, our full-time paid staff of 120 people, roughly a 350-member department, sending 60 people up there is quite the impact. So we tried to help out because it's all reciprocity in the fire service. In our fraternal order, there's going to be times that we're going to need it in Tulare County, and being a good neighbor is what it's all about. So that is my brief, rough story. If we have some boots on the ground that people would like to talk. Brief.
Yes.
He laughed at brief. That's good. Any questions from a local standpoint? Any comments, Ron? I notice you haven't been able to sit still.
I'm happy with everything.
But again, thank you for having us up here.
You're welcome. Okay. At the time that it was being fought, Joe Garcia was still the chief, so the certificate has his name on it. It's for the agency, though. It's for county fire, for fighting the rough fire. And there's a certificate from the chamber and another bed and breakfast certificate, and you can decide who gets it.
How about I give him the certificate and I'll take the bed and breakfast?
And hang on a second. Whoops. And the women working on the art award. See, that's leather,
Oh, that's unbelievable.
fabric, and look at that embroidery. I could never do that, that's for sure.
And you said Casey Fansett did this?
No. Casey designed the mountains in the
Okay.
back and cleaned up the logo, the original logo that Peter had made. The women who did this, Shirley Fox, her daughter Patty Fox, and their friend Angie Peterson,
Okay.
locals, got together and they said, applique. That's what we're going to do. Applique and embroidery on leather.
I appreciate this. I can't draw a stick figure.
I can't either.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You have the bag.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shelby Charlie, and I'm the Fire Management Officer on the Hume Lake Ranger District. That when it crossed on the Sierra onto us, that was my area of response. So I'm here on behalf of Kevin Elliott, the forest supervisor, that can't make it tonight, and on behalf of Teresa Benson, the district ranger, which was the agency rep for us on that, and just as it came across, and as I sat there, I seen the beautiful redwood trees, and they felled the redwoods. Well, that's where it originated from us right there on the Hume Lake Ranger District. The bull tree is the 6th largest tree in the world, and it's the largest in any national forest. So that was amongst that one and 11 other redwood groves. That was our primary resource objectives to protect. But how can we protect that? So it was a challenge. But I want to echo what Dean said earlier. That everybody came together, and it was one fire, one fight. So once we kept that in mind, the communications flowed a lot easier that way. Again, the safety was number one. 78 days it lasted on our district. Again, what Dave Allen alluded to, the 2nd largest, in the Sierra Nevadas, and we went through a Type 2 team. First, it started as a Type 3 team on the Sierra National Forest, managed it well. Almost 2 weeks, we're going to transition to what we call a NEMO team, that kind of oversees the Type 3 team. It jumped outside of our perimeters, what we called the boundary, the trigger points that we set. We set a box. Okay, so if it jumped over here, this is what we would do. If it jumped over here, this is what we would do. So when it jumped to Middle Fork that day, it bumped up the complexity to a Type 2. We got Dave Cooper's Type 2 team that was on the Willow Fire at that time, on the Sierra. And we got those guys activated to come over and give us a hand, But when this thing first started on a rough spur across, I sat there at Yucca Point and I looked and I said, what if this thing had potential to cross? There's no way we're going to pick it up direct. Firefighter safety, we just got to go indirect and see where we could pick it up. We didn't manage it. We suppressed it, and we tactfully, our tactics caused that we couldn't get close to this thing at all. It was impossible without killing someone, So, but as I stood there and looked at this, and I looked behind me, Hume Lake Christian Conference Camp, with 25 to 3,000 kids at that time, how are we going to evacuate these guys? So we got together, went to the Sierra, and we started, cooperators meeting. How are we going to get on the same page? If this happened, what are we going to do if that happened? That type of stuff. But our primary for the Hume Lake Ranger District on the Sequoia was to protect the redwoods. and how would we, go in there cutting brush, 100 years, 100-year-old brush on that ridge to protect it from coming any further, onto the redwood groves, so dozers was a number one, so a lot of political things that had happened and set things up. And again, it took a lot of communications with all the various agencies, to help us out with that. So initially we started with Dave Cooper's team, and then we set a trigger point, and once it crossed the river, then we went to a Type 1 team, and another Type 1 team, and another Type 1 team. So it went 3 Type 1 teams in there, and of course it ended up with me taking over as IC3, to really see this thing final to go through. And then for me, it went to IC4 on the district, once everything was down. And to answer the question, to be precise, Mike Thune showed me November 6th is the day we called it declared controlled out. After a couple good snowstorms, and some of the smokes were out, and I wouldn't be surprised that as it dries out, we will see a smoke or two, in some stumps. The redwood stumps were. Well, if you guys been in a Hume Lake big stump, it burned all that, and it burned deep. So I'm sure it's traveling along the root system. It's going to pop up somewhere once the conditions are right. So we're aware of that. But the biggest thing, of course, with the national Type 1 teams coming in, the injuries were low. I think 12 total with minor knees injuries, ankles. The one that we had a medevac out took us 3 hours, because we couldn't medevac them out because of the smoke conversion. So it took people hauling them out, on a backboard and getting them to the ambulance, coordinate with the park, get it down to McKenzie to get a flight, that's clear of the smoke. So once that occurred, that it changed the tactics and the dynamics of the fire, to back off, stay on top of the ridges, and just use fire to fight this fire. Where we got safety zones staying on top, and again with CAL FIRE. With the agencies involved, that's what made it work, And then the incident management teams, very, very good to work with, professional, and made it easier for us, to accomplish those objectives, which was number one, firefighter public safety, so.
How long did any of these teams fight the fire before they got arrested?
14 days is what they timed out on, Then we did
days.
a day transition, then 14 days, and, another team came in, another team, and,
And during those 14 days, they don't leave the area?
No, we set up in Squaw Valley,
Okay.
So it was like a mini town, and they're up to where we had probably close to 2,500 firefighters at one time there, So again, law enforcement, the shutdown of Cedar Grove was a big one, as far as 800 people, I believe, Dave, we got out of there.
Yeah, you can have up to 1,200.
Yeah,
on some weekends.
but once it threatened to shut down 180. They would be there until how long?
Yeah.
So anyway, so we evacuated them out, and again, Caltrans, CHP, along with all the various agency law enforcement officers. Dunlap School was a big evacuation center. I was one of them that had to evacuate. In the town of Dunlap. So from there, luckily, we just kind of went around to friends and neighbors, and stayed. But I think 4 days before they let us back in. But yeah, it was a long duration fire, and again, it was a historical one that we mentioned before, but now the aftermath is a plan, like we talked about, plans of how we're going to, repair the suppression. There are roads wiped out, there's trails wiped out. How are we going to, and that's the plan we're doing now in conjunction to try to open this up for the public again, but we're looking at planting trees, 500 acres worth that we kind of identified, looking at the GIS layer, and seeing what the severity of the burn areas were, and how we're going to attack that, to try to restore itself, But I must say that there was some redwoods that were destroyed, but over the years, as you guys know, the history of the redwoods, it likes fire, and that's what makes it. 2 weeks after it went through, Dean, we went through and we got pictures that you can see all these seedlings just popping up all over the place, man. So devastating, but here's new life.
New life, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And beautiful wildflowers too. I'm
Yeah,
sure. They will come.
Yeah, but it's under 3 foot of snow, which we're happy with right now.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
and more
good.
tonight. Yes, sir.
Are there any other after effects that anyone is concerned about, not fire, but because of the ground and the watershed being, burned off? Are we concerned about spring flooding,
Oh, yeah.
landslides?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Roads being wiped out? And yet sort of another level of destruction. And are you guys, aside from restoration, are there concerns or plans for that as well?
Yes, there is. Yeah, in fact, we were talking to see if, because in 180 down in the canyon, if we're going to open up Highway 180, there's just a lot of rock slides, a lot of things that are just breaking loose. You guys, and a lot of media are, hearing when we hear 41 shutting down into Yosemite, all of a sudden, was that from a burned area? 2 years ago, I think it was, right? It was from a burned area, But yeah, definitely there is concerns there, the ground's loosened, of course, the tree mortality, as we talked about earlier, is just devastating, And yeah, once the wind blows, we're going out there right now, trying to open up roads, whatever, like the storm that comes through this week, and Monday we'll be out there in groups, cutting the trees off the road, because most likely it's loosening up the base of the trees, with the wind and everything else. So, but there is plans, and we've yet to coordinate and really put it into a working plan, I guess you could say. So what we're going to be doing.
You might mention the role of the bear team coming in afterwards.
Oh, okay. And the bear team is a burn area environmental response team, and so those guys, they got hydrologists, soil, there's a team that's made up, and they determine the severity of the burns and what we could do, to restore it, like we mentioned, before. Some of the things that we're working on now, and I can tell you guys for sure, is now that, once we burn through the historical logging areas, we're trying to put gates in, we're trying to secure so we can open up to the public again. But we have to secure it because it's all exposed now, So the bear team was an integral part on what's deemed safe and what isn't, as far as opening up roads, trails, and such, But definitely those guys are a big plan for us to help restore, back to it. But one thing I want to make sure that we talked about the public and the fire information officers, Mike Thune and his team, how integral part that was to get the information out to everybody. Everybody's got the InstaWeb they go on to. Well, these guys highly, professionally trying to keep this up to date as much as possible from the meetings and where we're going to go, how we're going to do this, if we evacuate, where we're going to go, when is it deemed safe to come back. I give hats off, to the fire information folks, man, to keep the public, totally informed.
We were getting the emails, and there would be one in the morning, and there'd be one in the evening, twice a day.
Yeah, and they set
You
up.
even have to wonder.
Yep, and they set up the trap lines for the public as they were coming in, as far as, posting information, maps, updated maps, to
right.
keep everybody informed and on the
really
situation. Oh, yeah, it's imperative.
Wow.
I know you can't see this, but I'm changing hats right now. So I have my Chamber of Commerce hat on here. I know you. Oh, you're making me stand.
Yes.
I know it's hard to predict, but there's a lot of work involved in recovery from an event as significant as this. Do you believe there will be an impact on the summer season that's coming up as a result of this fire? Because the communities around the park really survived the whole year from the 3 months in summer. So do you believe there'll be some kind of an impact where certain areas will be impassable or people can't go in?
Yes.
You
just got to be patient.
Talk a little bit about that?
Again, from the bear team's assessment, we're working with those plans before we open it up to the public.
Okay, will there be an announcement that says
yes.
what's closed, what's open?
Yep, and Mike Thune will be with our, with the Forest, Sierra and Sequoia's Public Affairs Officer. And, based upon our work plan, our what we come up with, it'll be deemed, because we'll open it up much as we can.
Right.
But for the safety, it's gotta be.
There's no question that it's for safety, but from a Chamber of Commerce perspective, and I'm not just speaking for the Three Rivers area, I'm talking about all around the park. A lot of international visitors plan their visits well in advance, and a lot of them get very disappointed and angry if they can't go where they had planned to go. So the sooner that information can come out, the better. No pressure.
No. Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things that I'm really lucky is having, working with the Sequoia Forest Public Affairs Officer and the Sierra National Forest Public Affairs Officer, and even our own Public Affairs Officer, Dana Dirks, is we utilize, stand over here, talking directly over somebody, is you know, we utilize every tool that we possibly can in our toolbox. Just like our firefighters have their Pulaskis and their boots, I have a laptop and a phone. Those are my tools. And you know, it's appreciation from the community that they can spread that word. Social media is one of our best tools and we're able to use. So we put out news releases. So we ask that, you know, you check those things. You know, we realize it's really important to these communities, these gateway communities, how important the tourism industry is. But like, you know, Shelby's saying is that there are going to be impacts.
Yes.
You had a huge event that went through, and we really appreciate the community is like, it's hard, but we appreciate their support, and that's the best thing. You know, it's one day at a time.
You come to the town halls and
Mhm.
talk to us. Maybe if people from the forest would come occasionally and tell us how it's doing, you know, these trails are open now. This is not. And by the way, we have beautiful wildflowers. You know, come, if you could come occasionally to a town hall, that would help.
Sure, yeah, for the information, yeah.
Right.
And it will help us as a chamber because we notify our member businesses
Yeah.
what is open, what isn't open. Some of them do get the news releases, some of them don't.
Right.
So if we can summarize it for them, they can tell their customers so there's no disappointment. You won't have arguments at the entry gates and that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Right, and that's the challenge is we try to put out that our creed is, you know, put out accurate and timely information as soon as
Absolutely.
possible. And sometimes there's times where we don't know, and that's the hard part. But right now, this time of year, it's a lot of analyzing that data, analyzing what happened, what were the effects, what can be open, and again, I can't reiterate it enough. It's the safety of the public is paramount.
Absolutely, and I do have to repeat something that Leah started to say. The volume and quality of information that we got coming out of the rough fire and all the agencies involved. One was uniform, two was incredibly detailed and timely. It was probably the best information stream I've ever seen as a result of a disaster like this. So
Thank you.
kudos.
Thank you very much.
Keep it up.
Thank you. That means a lot.
All right, now find the certificate for the forest, for
Okay.
Sequoia National Forest, for helping fight and control the rough fire, a chamber certificate, and another bed and breakfast gift certificate, which you can decide who gets to use.
Oh, I'll give it to the boss.
And there, they need yours.
Well, I see we got cameras going. No.
And there, they made that for you.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it, everyone.
You're welcome.
Leah, can I get a picture of both of you?
Okay, let's show the artwork.
Okay.
If I have to be in the picture.
All right, 3,
great.
2, 1, and one more. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you.
We need to show the picture. Okay, and we've got one more, last one here for CAL FIRE. Who's gonna be here with you tonight to talk about CAL FIRE's contribution?
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Yes.
I'm Tony.
Tony,
It's nice to meet you.
very good to
Hi
meet
guys,
you.
I'm Tony Alisi. I'm a fire apparatus engineer. I work at the Three River Station right down the road. And I'd first like to thank you guys for your hospitality and having us here tonight. What you guys are doing here in the community is amazing, a great event, and we're just really glad to be a part of it. I'd also like to thank Firefighter Vasquez for his efforts and congratulate him on his Firefighter of the Year. Give him a round of applause. Very good job. Something that goes with that, his wife and his family, as firemen, that's something that helps lift us up and keep us going. So give a round of applause for her as well, please. So I'm pretty new to this area. I'm still learning people's names, faces, and the community that we have. My role in the rough fire is we were assigned to a strike team, and we went to the rough fire. We went as a contingency, and there's been a lot of good stuff that we've talked about here. I'm not going to cover all of it. But we were part of a contingency team. We went and helped set up another kind of base camp staging area. And from there, we went and brushed roads. So there was an area where we thought maybe the fire was going to come down to. We widened the roads, made them wider, so that way there was a bigger buffer. So that fire did come down, it gave us an area to help protect it and keep it from jumping that road. We also went around a lot of houses and prepared them and prepped them in case that fire came through. With that, we already kind of talked about our fire prevention program and defensible spaces, and that's something that's really important. And as a community, if we keep up on each other and keep those 100-foot, 30-foot areas clear, it makes our jobs a lot easier. So when we come through and we have a fire blazing down the hill coming at us, we can go to your house, not have to move all the brush and debris, something that firefighter Vasquez had to deal with. So the community taking a big role in that and helping each other out and cleaning those areas is huge, and that what helps us do our job and help defend that house a little better and gives us a little more time. So we did that on the rough fire. Then we also worked on a bulldozer line. So a lot of times, the big bulldozers go through and make giant rows on the dirt to help make another barrier. And we would go and support that bulldozer crew by putting in a hose lay. And I heard, and it was pretty steep country. We had all of our gear on, a big old pack. It felt like I was wearing 1,000 pounds. And we were hiking up these hills and laying hose and putting water down, helping extinguish the hot spots and doing what we call mopping up. So if we have a spot that's still smoldering and hot, we'll put that spot out so it doesn't breach our line or the wind kicks up and blows it across the line. But other than that, that's pretty much the role we had. From there, it started raining and we got bumped around to another fire. So thank you guys.
Good. Anybody have any questions for him?
Excellent.
So it's so good to have you here.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
You know, when it comes to January, it's usually kind of hard to find you guys.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you've worked so hard and now you're gone. You'll come back in when it's fire season again, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I know.
So we shut down. We shut down to 3 stations. We kept one of the stations open here in 3 Rivers to help the community out as well.
Thank you. And we really appreciate you being here this time.
So 3 River Station's open this winter?
Yes, sir.
And which station's closed down?
Fire Captain Atterbury maybe can shed some light on that.
The current stations that are open is 3 Rivers, Fountain Springs, and the Bear Creek Station.
Okay.
So 3 Rivers, Fountain Springs, and Springville.
Okay.
Those are the current stations open for the winter until the climate changes and back to fire season.
Okay.
Could everybody hear that? I
Yeah.
had some difficulty hearing that back there.
The current fire stations that are open are the Bear Creek Station, located in Springville, and here in 3 Rivers, and then also in Fountain Springs, the south end part of the county.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Anybody have any more questions? Like I said, just glad to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Let's see. And Paul Marquez was in charge when the fire was being fought.
Okay. We'll
So
make
we've
sure he
got
gets
his
that.
name on here.
Excellent.
Yeah, and he was an early supporter of the Heroes program.
Oh, was he?
He heard about it a long time ago and got all excited.
That's a
so
great
I
program.
haven't forgotten.
Thank you very much.
Because we were new then. Okay, and let's see, a certificate from the chamber and a gift certificate.
Excellent. We'll make
Bed
sure he
and
gets
breakfast. And it'll be his name on this too.
that. Very
It was
cool.
for Cal Fire. All right, let's see, I'll get it.
Thank you.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you very much.
All friends.
Yes.
I don't know these people.
We fear intimacy.
Okay, for tonight, we're all friends.
All
Okay, 1, 2. One more, just with safety.
Smile, Vasquez. You can smile. You can
Carlos,
smile.
come on.
Yes, there you go.
Yes.
You can see. There you go.